presentation, and after that the DG will also make his remarks, and then we will head straight to question time. But for now, I'm going to ask the Minister to please take to the stage so that she can take us through the announcement of the day. Minister, over to you.
Thank you very much, Babu Mhlanga. And let me say good afternoon to all members of the media, the officials from DBE, and the public in general. Once again, it has become very necessary for us to come and update the nation on the developments in our sector. We keep on repeating that this has been a very difficult year due to COVID-19, and the matric exams also came with their own challenges. Today is the 23rd day of the 30 days of exams, so we are only left with only 5 working days. We have written already 189 papers out of the 216 papers that were to be written for this exam, meaning that we have already reached almost 88% of the exam to be completed. So we just are over 2/3 of the exams. As you might be aware, because I did come and inform the nation that our maths paper 2 was leaked, and later also got an information that the physical science paper 2 was leaked. The physical science paper 2 was leaked, and we managed to contain the damage by the fact of the matter that it was leaked. We also got information, I think I got information on a Saturday, of the business studies paper, that the business study paper is in the hands of learners. They had written to some lecturer to ask for help, and when the office checked, it did confirm that it is a legitimate paper. But because we had time, we were able to use the backup paper for the business study. So though it was leaked, but it was not written. So we urgently met as CM because it was quite clear that we were in big trouble if 3 papers can leak one after the other. So we convened a CM and agreed on what different steps that we have to take to protect the integrity of exams, because it was quite clear that we were in trouble already with 3 papers leaking one after the other. So we took a number of steps which we couldn't divulge at that time so that we can protect the very interventions that we had to take. We can reveal now that we are almost at the end of the exams, that we had to use backup papers that were there. We selected subjects which we thought were high risk, but at that time, for security reasons, we couldn't go out and really explain to people which papers are being, for which papers we're using the backup papers. And we can say it's been a very costly exercise, but we needed to act fast in the interest of the learners and the public in general. I do expect the AG at some stage next year they'll give us a fruitless expenditure, because we had to shred all the papers that were already photocopied in other sessions, use backup papers, So it was a very costly exercise in terms of time, human resources, all sorts of difficulties. So you will recall that on the 18th of November, we had this media briefing and reported that some of our question papers had been leaked, as I've indicated, and can confirm that indeed the Maths 2 paper and the physical science paper were leaked. So we established a task team that I also explained that we will have a task team that will give us the report by the 30th to give us a sense of the extent of the leak, because at the end of the day, we are not responsible for, we're responsible for the running of the exams. But the final word about whether what we say is acceptable, the exams have integrity, it's not in our hands. So we met on the 1st of December, after the 30th, to really get a report from the team that was to help us determine the extent of the leak, because we had to take a decision quickly to say, depending what the report says, whether we can go on a rewrite or we can use what other methods, depending on what the extent of the leak was. So we did convene, as I say, a meeting on Tuesday to consider the recommendations that came from the National Examinations Irregularity Committees, which operates under the National Investigation Task Team. They were tasked, as I say, to investigate the leakage of the Maths 2 and Maths and Physical Science paper. The report of the report of the NIC was presented to the Council of Education Minister and the MECs. It was presented by Advocate Luvuyo Bono, what the findings were and what their recommendations were. So before I really give you the results, I thought it would be fair to give you a sense of what were the issues, what was discovered, what were the issues, then announce that based on those issues and what the findings and the consultations, how we reached the decision that we have arrived at, so that everybody is quite clear about how we arrived at the decision that we have arrived at. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Minister, Director General, members of the media, and the South African public. My job is a difficult one, and I suppose it's even more difficult for the Minister in terms of the decision that has to be made with regard to examination credibility. I think what we are here and about to announce relates to how do we ensure that examination credibility and integrity is maintained at all cost. That which the Department of Basic Education, together with Umalusi, focuses on is the currency of the National Senior Certificate. And the day that the South African National Senior Certificate, which is the exit certificate relating to 12 years of learning, and the day that that certificate loses its currency, loses its value, it simply means that the entire education in our country is compromised. And therefore, prior access to a question paper is indeed a serious problem. And all our efforts are directed to making sure that when a learner sits in an examination room, he is being tested, examined on a question paper that he's had no prior access to, and one that will reflect his achievement and his efforts throughout not just the year, but through 12 years of teaching and learning. Now, when one talks about examination credibility, we as the Department of Basic Education, that is responsible for the administration of the examination, need to make sure that there are three key components where examination security, examination administration is of critical importance. Firstly, our question paper must be guarded at whatever cost. And therefore, our question papers are set by a selected team of examiners, moderators. It then is finally approved by Umalusi under extremely secure conditions. After the question paper is approved by Umalusi, it must then be administered in terms of the regulations and the protocols that are set out in the Umalusi directives, as well as in the minister's regulations in this regard. So the exam administration is the second component. And thirdly, the marking and the resulting must comply with the highest standards that are also promulgated in our regulations. Now, let me just say something about the Umalusi approval. Like Minister has mentioned, we administer the exam, but the approval in terms of the validity, reliability, and the integrity of the exam comes from Umalusi. And there are two critical criteria that Umalusi will look at before they declare the examination as being free and fair. Firstly, they must establish beyond reasonable doubt that the assessment was free from any irregularity that may jeopardize the integrity of the assessment or its outcomes. Secondly, they must ensure that as an assessment body, the Department of Basic Education has complied with the requirements prescribed by Council for conducting assessment. Now, when it was established that these two question papers, together with the business studies, had leaked, we were able to salvage and restore the credibility of business studies. And as Minister indicated, there was a replacement of the business studies question paper prior to the writing. However, in the case of mathematics paper 2 and physical science paper 2, this only became evident after the examination was written. So the first step of the Department of Basic Education was to establish the spread of the question paper. Now, the spread of the question paper will determine the extent of the compromise. But you and I will agree that given the fact that we are in the 21st century, where the electronic media has become the main modality of communication, and you and I are fully aware that the electronic transmissions have no boundaries, no provincial boundaries, no national boundaries. So what we then say is that what is on social media literally spreads like wildfire. You can spread a message across the entire world literally in a matter of a few minutes. So this indeed placed a severe challenge that we as the Department of Basic Education were confronted with. There were at least 195 learners that we established had access to the maths paper. But what we could not safely and confidently secure, the extent to which the 195 would have shared this question paper with those around them, with those on their cell phone directories. And what also became another compounding factor was the fact that we have to make an announcement regarding a rewrite in such time that our candidates have enough time to be able to prepare for this examination. So as a result, the investigation team that was established by the minister had literally 2 weeks to be able to establish the extent of the spread. The other major challenge is that you and I know that analysis of cell phone records is extremely tedious and it's an extended process. We have been informed by the experts, and the experts that I'm referring to are the Hawks, that to analyze one cell phone and the cell phone records contained in the database will take up to 7 days. And in terms of access to information, we can't just seize a cell phone and look at the records and the messages received, the messages transmitted. We have to obtain a court order. So that also places another challenge. And if you look at electronic media platforms, we know that this question paper was transmitted via WhatsApp, but there are a number of other social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, and to be able to go through each of these media platforms and establish the extent of the leakage was going to be virtually an impossible task. So basically, as a Department of Basic Education, we're faced with three options. The first option was that you have a national rewrite of Mathematics Paper 2 and Physical Science Paper 2. Now, a national rewrite is certainly the most acceptable option because there can never be a lingering doubt in the minds of any member of the public that this question paper would have been compromised if you have a rewrite. The second option available to us was treat maths and physical science separately. Because in our investigation, we were able to establish that physical science did not spread as widely as mathematics. So the second option was a national rewrite for maths paper 2 and a selected rewrite for physical science paper 2. But one must understand, if we say selected or contained in the case of physical science, it would be contained in terms of the information that was made available to us. Whether you had 195 or whether you had a 60 in terms of the number of learners that had access to physical science, the spread could very well be the same in terms of physical science and mathematics. And the third option was no rewrite for either mathematics paper 2 or physical science paper 2. Now, if I say no rewrite, it does not mean that we would have been turning a blind eye to a compromise. There are protocols, there are procedures that could have been followed to try and establish the irregularity, and then we follow the normal procedure in terms of taking action against the learners. But the fundamental of the irregularity protocols of the Department of Basic Education is you must identify with evidence the learner that had access to the question paper. Now that, in terms of the social media platform, would have become extremely difficult. So what the Department of Basic Education, under the leadership of our Director General, engaged in is wide-scale consultation to establish, firstly, from key stakeholders, what is their understanding of what has been the spread of the question paper, and secondly, in their view, what is it that the department should do in terms of the three options that are provided in terms of ensuring that the credibility of these two question papers were restored. So just to give you a list of the various structures and formations that were consulted. All teacher unions were consulted, SGB associations, professional bodies. We even went to our examining panels that had set the question paper, moderated the question paper to get their views. SAQA, Umalusi, USAF, all the provincial education departments were consulted on more than one occasion. HEDCOM, which is the heads of department, which is an important decision-making body. And finally, the Council of Education Ministers that is chaired by Minister. Now, it is interesting that at each of these consultations, there were divergent views in terms of these three options. And if we were to go through the detail, you will see how varied the views were. But in terms of the reasons as to why the views were divergent, and let me summarize it based on what I've already mentioned, that we need to accept the question paper was compromised. Anything placed on a public platform, whether it's accessed or not, it simply means that it has reached the public. And we cannot therefore say that 195, but the very fact that it's on a platform that is open to the public means that it has been compromised. But as much as we say that, there were certain formations and structures that felt that the evidence available was inadequate. And I think that which came up very strongly was, can you allow the entire country comprising of 391,000 mathematics learners to rewrite a question paper that a large percentage would not have had access to. And that is the reality. But unfortunately, if we want to restore public confidence, we had to then take possibly that which is regarded as an unpopular decision. And like Minister has indicated, that an important structure in the examination arena is the Quality Assurance Council. And as you and I are aware, Umalusi is an independent body, and Umalusi, I've mentioned, has two cardinal principles that will determine whether they declare the examination as free and fair. And when we presented our report to Umalusi, it was clear that the investigation into the leaked papers is not complete and cannot be completed, given the nature of the medium that was used to transmit the question paper. Umalusi also agreed that the full extent of the spread of the two leaked question paper has not been determined and cannot be determined conclusively in the limited time we have available. And therefore, Umalusi concluded that the integrity and credibility of the two question papers has been irrevocably compromised. And I'll stop there and I'll allow Minister to continue.
As Dr. Polio had said that there were divergent views at different levels. Even now we're from a meeting with stakeholders, there's still difficulties about the decision. But a decision had to be taken. And want to say, having considered all the factors, including our engagement with Umalusi, we agreed as CM that there must be a national rewrite of your maths paper 2 and your physical science paper 2. It's the first time in our history that we have a national rewrite. It's a very difficult decision, and I must say, a very sad decision to take. We've had provincial rewrites, but it's the first time ever that we find ourselves having to do a national rewrite. As I said, there continue to be difficulties. There are parts of the sector which is not in agreement, but as I say, finally, we had to take the decision. So what we want to announce today is that the maths paper will be written on Tuesday, the 15th of December. We couldn't find an earlier date, timetable, chock-a-block, but we also felt that they need time to refresh themselves. Again, there were views, others were saying we have to give them chance to write, but we can't wait for next day. Others say, whilst our learners are still in the mood, exam mood, we should just capture that moment. So to be written on the 15th of December at 2 p.m. And unfortunately, we couldn't find any other space. So the physical science paper 2 will be written on Thursday, the 17th of December, so even beyond our exam period at 9 a.m. We know it's going to be very difficult for families. They might have prepared themselves to leave after the 15th, especially after the fact that the 16th is a public holiday, but we couldn't find any other day. So that's the only day we've determined it. And as we said, it was not an easy decision. I still feel a lump. But we felt it was very necessary under the circumstances. We need to work hard to deal with the human factor in the exam system because it's a very costly exercise for us, both financially, human resources, but also I think emotionally and mentally. So we, as CM, we appreciate the work that has been done by the Directorate of Priority Crime Investigations, the Hawks. They've been very helpful. They've been working flat to help us, but also to protect the future papers, because we were able to identify where some of the problems arose. And we also welcome the fact that there have been arrests, and we hope that more arrests will follow. And because of the difficulties of this exercise, in particular to the learners, to the educators, and the families, we have to find a way, and we should find a way of sending a very strong message that tampering with national examinations is a very serious offense, because look at what it has landed us to. We committed ourselves again as provinces and the sector to we'll do whatever we possibly can do to continue to protect exams. And in conclusion, Chair, just want to reiterate the words of the President that again, when our children finish writing exams, they have all sorts of youthful activities which may present dangers of complacency and risks associated with non-compliance with the health protocols. So we really appealing to our young people that as the year ends, we urge them not to engage in the year-end so-called pens down and all sorts of parties, because these also can be super spreader events that can potentially endanger their lives. We want them to continue to adhere to protocols, wear their masks, continue to have social distance, wash their hands, and avoid mass gatherings as much as possible. And again, lastly, we wish to appreciate the sacrifice and the hard work displayed by the officials of the department, our partners in the sector. As I said, there continue to be difficulties, so I don't think we'll be surprised to note that maybe this may not be the end of the story, but we will deal with the matters as they arise. I want to thank Director General, my colleague, the Deputy Minister who had to stand in Parliament because again there are budgets that have to be approved, and one of us had to be in to speak on behalf of our department, of our budget. But as I say, it's a very sad decision. It's the first time it happens in our history that we have a national rewrite, but the decision has been taken in the interest of the exams, even for the learners themselves, so that they are not the learners who wrote an exam which was limping, that they had seen papers. So even if those who get A's are not sure whether they got an A because they had access to the paper first. And I think what complicated matters, as Dr. Polo said, has said, unlike in the previous leaks in Mpumalanga, we could prove that it was confined to that province. But with it leaking through a WhatsApp group of a national a group of participants, it just became difficult. I don't know who had forwarded it to who. It was a national group of learners. We could pin them down to 195 we said, but you don't know who else they would have forwarded to. And as they were being interviewed, I was told they were even beginning to close the ranks, and we felt that we can't delay the decision further and wait for the investigation to be finished. For their sake and the sake of everybody else, we have to swallow this very difficult pill. As I say, it has never happened in the history of the sector that we have a national rewrite. But unfortunately, that's what we have to announce, and really apologize to our learners who have not had access to the paper, because even though some of them had access to the paper, it landed on their cell phones. But for me as a minister, if Umalusi says they will not recognize the results, for me it closes the matter. Because we can't risk as a sector any situation where Umalusi disowns the results, to say, well, we can accredit, we can allow the following, but the following we are not sure, therefore we are not giving a stamp. It's too risky. So to make sure that life goes on, I think we all are clear. We can protect the integrity of the exams. We can protect our children. We'll have to go and get a rewrite so that we don't have issues coming back of exam results being held back because they can't be certified by Umalusi. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. Thanks, Dr. Polia. We can now take questions. Colleagues, please alert me. We have a link to Cape Town. Is there anyone there? Can we start with them? Is there anyone in Cape Town? No questions in Cape Town. Okay, thank you so much. Let's come back to this room. I'm seeing one hand. Just one hand only. Okay, that's fine. Sarah?
Good afternoon, Minister. Sarah from ENCA. I'd just like to ask, so what steps will be taken against this company that does the printing of the papers? We understand that the person that actually got hold of it was from the company. And also, who will then be held accountable for this? And is there any action actually that will be taken against any of the learners who received the question papers and started to spread it?
All right, that's fine. There's no other question. The WhatsApp line, do we have any questions there?
Thanks, Mr. We have one question on WhatsApp line. The question is coming from Charles from the Cape Agras. And the question is, Minister, are you concerned about what impact the rewrite will have on the mental health of learners? And what steps has the department taken in making sure that another leak does not happen and to restore credibility? Thanks.
All right, great stuff. Yeah, in the absence of any other questions, Minister, I'm going to ask you to respond to those 2 or 3 questions. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Tsakufas. The investigations are still going on. We have not reached a stage where we now make decisions to say who is held responsible. We know where it leaked. And unfortunately, and the investigation is still going on, it's a very strange phenomena that we find ourselves faced with. The maths paper, we first detected between Gauteng and Limpopo. And the indications are that the person that we have is the one that leaked the maths paper. The business economic paper surfaced in the Eastern Cape. And in all instances, because we are able to trace and confirm where the leak took place through a barcode. And the barcodes were I'm told, were hidden or compromised. So we, and it looked like it was from Northwest.
One was from Gauteng and the other Northwest.
Yeah, so I'm still not, we're still investigating exactly just to understand, to get to grips, to say what happened. At least this, even the person, and I'm not supposed to be talking about the court case, whether he spread it and other, it's a different issue. We keep on getting briefings and report from the Hawks, and I'm not free to really say exactly what are they picking up. So we've not reached that stage as yet. And unfortunately, I cannot fully divulge what the briefings that we've been getting from the Hawks about their work. The impact on the mental health, that's why I mentioned that it's a very sad and difficult decision. But we had to say what is in the best interest of our learners. We don't want the cohort of 2020, because even that group that paper ended up, I'm told it's a group of top achievers who are networked, and that's why they're national. So I think for their own good, you don't want when they come with A's and B's, it should be that they had access to the paper. But some of the learners are saying they only saw the paper on their phones after. Others said they saw it in the morning when they got off the taxi. So I think it's in the long term, it's in their interest. Indeed, it is very stressful psychologically, not only to themselves, to parents. As I say, even now in the sector, there are lots of rumblings that we shouldn't have gone for a national rewrite. But in our view, we felt that that's the best thing under the difficult circumstances. And which is quite sad that it's the same group that went through COVID-19 and other things, and now they have to learn it with the first time with a national rewrite that has never happened before. So we are aware of the mental health impact. We hope schools and parents will continue to support them. And as much as I don't want to underestimate the psychological impact of what the rewrite might mean, but sometimes, even as an experienced teacher, I know kids they just bounce back. And we hope that they'll be able to cope. It's in their interest, and they'll be able to bear with us that we had to do this for their own good, to protect the credibility of their certificates. So I think that's, did I miss something?
Steps to avoid the leaks of further leaks.
Oh, and what we always anticipated. Again, I can't reveal how this one happened, at which step the leak happened and other things. But on an ongoing basis, every year, we send auditors, not even ourselves, to go and audit our systems and say, help us identify where the shortcomings are. We get people who interact with their papers to be vetted, officials whose children are writing exams to get out of the exam system. For instance, the HOD of Gauteng, one of his children was writing a matric, so he had to completely withdraw from the exams. So we tried at all costs, we digitized. Lots of people have been sending me digital solutions to say you can print a paper as you enter. I don't know how do you print 1 million papers in the morning when you go into an exam. So say you can have a disk and then it will throw papers. Some of these papers are 10 pages. It will just give you so there have been lots of advices that we've been getting. We'll consider all of them. But I can assure you that it's not something we take very lightly. And that's why when it happens, we feel extremely, extremely disappointed and saddened. But we normally do everything in our powers to make sure that we don't have a repeat. I mean, the last time we had a leak was in Limpopo. It's about 5 years back when we had that leak in Limpopo. 2016. And it's not that it was lucky that the other 5 years we didn't have leaks. It's not by sheer luck. It's because of the measures we've put in place and the investments that we normally put in place to protect the papers. But the human element here, really, the human factor here, caused us all these difficulties that we're going through. But on an ongoing basis, we assess. Even now with the leaks, DG told me that the whole, maybe you can speak to that, the whole system is now being re-audited to really make sure that we don't have a repeat. But it's something that we engage with on an ongoing basis because the cost is just a bit too high for us. And the integrity of the exams has no price. And we normally throw in everything we can to protect the integrity of exams. And that's why when Umalusi said they're not budging, and I just felt, this is what closes the matter. If they can't confirm the credibility of the exams, there's no debate for me, because that for me is the biggest prize in the whole system. So thank you. Maybe DG.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, colleagues from the media and the South African public. Just maybe one point regarding what measures have we taken to strengthen our security of question papers. We've done many things, and as the Minister and Dr. Pulia correctly indicated, that we've been advised by security agencies that some of our weaknesses is to communicate what we are doing to strengthen our security measures. Because those who are determined to be part of the leaks get the information that they desperately need and they use it to their advantage. We've done many things. For instance, this year we also said we need to be prepared with more than one backup paper for various reasons. If there is a mass spread of the virus to the extent that a considerable number of learners are unable to write, then we should be able to get a backup paper and make the necessary arrangements and get them to write. And that's why The minister even moved and got the Council of Education Ministers to agree that even learners who are COVID-19 positive must be allowed to write. So that extent to which we were prepared, but over and above that, we have reviewed our processes of both printing and delivering papers as part of strengthening our security. We are subjecting our entire business process to an extensive audit by a private company and security agencies of the country. We've done it when it happened in Limpopo. This time around is going to be much more extensive than it happened before. Going into the future, we are also looking at investing extensively in ICT to counter and to even enhance the security of our papers. And I think that should suffice without giving more than what is required in terms of the response. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, DG. DG, what you just said now is one of the challenges that I experienced when I communicated and shared with colleagues in the media that we can't say what we have done to protect the examination. They were upset with me because we've always been open, we've always been sharing. But for the first time, we had to withhold some of the things that we're doing. I hope there will be understanding in that regard. I'm seeing one hand. There's also a return. Okay, let's go with that. We'll make this the last round so that we can conclude the briefing. Please proceed.
Minister, perhaps a question for you of the DG, Graham Rationale here from ETV News and Sport. Just want to know, you mentioned something about regular spending, perhaps in passing, just in terms of this whole sort of emergency process. What is the cost of all of this in terms of not only the lead papers, having to shred some papers, print backups? Does the department have a budget for that, and can you quantify the costs as well financially? Thank you.
All right, thanks for that question. Let's take the last one from Tshega again.
A quick clarity, is it just the math score or the math literacy as well? And then the issue of the dropout rate, I know this is something different, but are you concerned that there might be a higher dropout rate due to COVID-19 from what you have seen in the previous years?
All right, I think those will be the last two questions. Minister, please take over. Okay, so do we have questions on the WhatsApp? Okay, please let's go through those for the minister.
And the question is, can the department confirm whether these the only two papers that were leaked? And another question is, with the final report, the investigation report will be published.
All right, thank you so much. Minister, over to you.
Yeah, in terms of costs, I've checked with DG. We have not as yet costed the exercise, but you know it's costly. Different provinces had to bear the cost because they're the ones who are printing out. So I guess after the exercise, we'll reconcile what it meant. Provinces, because it also has to do with moving the papers, and I'm sure bigger provinces in terms of distance would have had to pay more costs in terms of the moving around of papers. But the truth of the matter, we've not reached that stage. We're still just managing the exams, and we will have to do the costing after. And then on dropout rate, fortunately our matric turnout was quite good. It was the highest actually, strange enough. So in terms of matriculants, they came in their numbers. It's in the internal grades where we didn't see 100% return rate. And again, we are not able to cost it properly because some of the schools that have that have access to ICTs. They were doing hybrid system. So it's only now that we'll be able to, when they reconcile, when we do admissions, to say who has not come. But our estimation in the internal grades will be about 10 to 20%, which is very high compared to what we normally have, because up to grade 10, we normally have a very good retention rate. It's only after grade 10 where we begin to see others going into your TVET colleges, others going to skills programs. So we do expect that in the internal grades, so I won't even call it dropout, because it could be repetition. That some parents might have felt that my child has missed too much, I kept them too long, they have to repeat the grade. So we'll only see when they come back to say, are they coming to repeat the 10% that we're worried about, or have they gone forever? But I do expect, especially the younger ones, that parents will return the kids. Just that parents were very unsure. The other one, with respect, sounds a very maverick question. Why would we hide? I mean, why would I lie about it? I have no business to lie. If I say 2 papers have leaked, 2 papers have leaked. You heard it from me. I'm saying 3 papers have leaked. Why would I say 3 when it's 5? We have no business to lie about it, because I'll be caught out in a lie. The papers that leaked were Maths paper 2, Physical Science paper 3, Business Studies paper 1, which were able to identify and use a backup paper. Okay. So the other question was whether it's Maths or it's questioning the integrity also for information. We won't lie in public. There's no basis for it. Because I don't steal these papers, so I have no reason to lie about them. So you ask whether it is Maths. So Maths on, it's not, as I say, when I say Maths 2, I don't see any other Maths, and say it's the Maths paper 2 that has leaked. It's Physical Science paper 2 that has leaked. It's Business Studies 1 that we managed to change the paper it had leaked. Okay? So, what's happening when I can take it from my car, I would not.
Yeah, I think that's all the questions that we had, and that will bring us to the close of the media briefing. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, DG. Thank you, Dr. Paula, and thank you to colleagues from the media. We really appreciate the time. Thank you. Ayenzanga le nto. Ayenzanga. Is it streaming? Really?
Elijah, the minister is going back to Parliament.
I'm sorry, I can't take them.
No, it's fine.
So please take them for me.
Yeah, you can take them.
No, the DG will help me.